Oops. Okay, let's get started. Didn't have my mic on. I see everybody. Thank you so much for coming on so late. This is so important. This is day 2000, let's see, 2005, I believe. Make sure that I'm right. Yeah, 2005. The enemy want access to children. Okay, the enemy want access to children. That's what I want to talk about today. And it's really late and eerie, wintry. But there's good news and there's bad news, right? There's always good news and bad news. There's always a choice. And so we're going to talk about that on day 2005, since our son, Richard Halliday, was forcibly removed from his barracks room because he was a whistleblower, wanted to be CID, was very keen eyes, wanted to be an investigator because he just had that gift. And he was reporting the criminal trafficking, the cartel on Fort Bliss, the corruption, and Fort Bliss's connection to the Walmart mass shooting, orchestration, staging, bloody death, the bloody death of August 3rd, 2019, and the military's connection to that. And why did they carry that out? Well, evidence indicates that it was mutinous. It was a mutiny. And you see what we're talking about when you look at Minnesota, right? When you look at Minnesota, when you look at Tim Walz was the running mate for Kamala Harris, who gave Veronica Escobar, the representative for the El Paso region for Fort Bliss, where our son was forcibly removed from his barracks room because he was a whistleblower. Kamala Harris gave Veronica Escobar the co-chair position, control of that $1.2 billion for the campaign. Very big deal because she was co-chair for Biden. And that just doesn't happen, y'all. That just doesn't happen when you switch people. It's like so consistent like that. That doesn't happen. Because politics is a very vicious lifestyle and business, and it's just so bad. It's so bad. And God warned us about that, didn't he? And so because it's so vicious, Richard was taken down to the basement room. It was the arms room. It's a soundproof room. And his life was taken from him. And of course, the Mormon faction member, DES Thomas Kane, with others, allowed Richard's body to be stolen off of Fort Bliss and trafficked to Mexico. Okay. So just, just let that sink in, right? That the director of emergency services, right, who we give so much trust to, we entrust not only our weapons and our equipment and our secret, but also access to our barracks, where our most valuable assets are. And that's our volunteer sons and daughters that volunteer to serve in the United States military. And we give this person, this position, the director of emergency services, control over the cameras, the guarding of the post, all of the security of of our uh, military installation. Fort Bliss, very important military installation. I mean, they're all important, but Fort Bliss is huge. It's huge, and he absolutely participated in this egregious crime against a soldier, a whistleblower that was protecting children. Okay, because what he was, because he told us it's so bad. It's so bad. And we know now with the witness statements from the emergency intake center that is responsible for trafficking over 500,000 children. Okay. And what, like a little over a 2 year period, right? Opening up in March of 2021 and being closed down in 2023. But 500,000 children. The invasion into the country was the goal. You know, you can say all the exploitation and all the fraud and the government contracts and the money that all that, you know, the fraud of it all. That costs so much money. It's like, why do we even pay our taxes? I don't know why we pay our taxes because the fraud is so bad. It's so bad. Just in Minnesota, it's like upwards to 20 billion now. $20 billion for for that simple fraud. Just think of the immensity of this invasion and what it has done to our country. And whenever something happens to our country, it happens to the world because we are a world power. We are the world power. And and yes, I know China is really big. I know Russia's really big. Um, yeah. So when something happens to the United States, a hiccup, you know, in Ireland, they would say then Ireland would get the flu. And this is with Mexico. And right now, we know that Mexico is really under the control of the United States. And how do we know that? Because Cash Patel, it doesn't matter what you think of him. He is the director of the FBI. Okay. It doesn't matter if you like him or not. It doesn't matter if you agree with what he's doing or not. It doesn't matter. He is the director of the FBI. And he himself went, the director of the FBI of the United States went to Mexico to pick up this Canadian Olympian cartel kingpin trafficker in person to bring him back to the United States, bypassing everything. So all everything that used to be between the United States and Mexico has totally changed. Totally changed. That's what that means. And that's because um, President Trump does not recognize the sovereignty of Mexico. Why? Oh, because he's such a bad guy or whatever? Or because the sovereignty of Mexico has been taken over by a FTO, by an FTO. So maybe Mexico lost its sovereignty. And that's why President Trump is not recognizing its sovereignty because it is being controlled by a cartel. A cartel. And people that are paying attention to what's going on in Mexico would agree. Would agree. And the evidence, when you watch what's happening, you know, eh, you absolutely, I love Mexico. Absolutely, the history of Mexico. is just amazing. I love history. And of course, I know Mexico City could be like this Versailles, right? The Versailles of Central America, right? Um, it's just so beautiful. It could be so beautiful. There's so much history there. And yet, they've lost their sovereignty. And in Chihuahua, confirmation after confirmation after confirmation, that's the state that borders the United States. The crossing from El Paso into Mexico, into Juarez, Mexico. That Juarez, Mexico is in the state of Chihuahua. So I try to put those maps up, and I'll put some more maps up because I think it's very, very handy to look at those maps and see. And if you love Mexico, if you're from Mexico, and even if you're not from Mexico and love Mexico, like our family loves Mexico and its history, but knows that it has been now in the hands of those that mean it harm, those that mean it harm, and that they have made an alliance. We know that the Juarez cartel made an alliance with the El Paso cartel. Wow. Are you allowed to say El Paso cartel? Are you allowed to say that? People don't even want to say El Paso cartel because they don't want to admit that a cartel is in the United States. They want to admit that the Sinaloa cartel, but they don't want to admit that they would have some treasonous, mutinous individuals that are anti-American, but they are American, right? Domestic enemies that have now formed a cartel in the United States that mean it harm. You know, the ICE right now is trying to deport uh, those that are foreign that come in that want to commit fraud and whatnot crimes and get them out of the country. But then we have our domestic enemies, right? The domestic criminals. But this is organized crime. This is organized crime. And they mean harm to the United States. And they can do a lot of harm because they are American citizens. And those American citizens infiltrating into our military, infiltrating is not really um really not the right word because these are American citizens. These are US citizens with no loyalty and love for the country. They mean it harm. They want to do criminal and evil things, and they want those positions within law enforcement, within the judicial, within all the agencies and institutions and the military to do harm to the United States and aid and abet their criminal organization. And they made an alliance with the Juarez cartel because they wanted deals with all the trafficking. They wanted the illegal immigration because they wanted access to people, to exploit the people, because they want access to children. And the emergency intake center is a greatest evidence that they would put together on Fort Bliss a 10,000 bed camp. They had camps before, okay? But this was just a camp on steroids. 10,000 beds, 10,000 unaccompanied children at a time that they had access to. And it was absolutely horrific. Horrific. And the media doesn't want to talk about it because there's this El Paso cartel tied group in the media, or El Paso cartel that own the media, that control the media. And that's why it gets really confusing, because you see these Americans and they will be talking all this American stuff. They will even be running for mayor and running for representative and running for sheriff and running for district attorney, running for this, running for that, and talking all this pretty talk, running for senator, running for, you know, of running for president of the United States. Didn't Beto O'Rourke run for president of the United States? He is part of the El Paso cartel. I said it. And he targeted President Trump because he was not controlled opposition. He was actually a real candidate. And so, with a real agenda for the United States. And that's why I mentioned today um, a rhino. Of course, we talked about a rhino this week, that President Trump called him out, and oh, the evidence is everywhere that he is a rhino, and that's DeMargo, the mayor of El Paso, part of this El Paso cartel. You know, fine looking businessman, American, right? Absolutely part of the El Paso cartel. Up to no good. And in alliance with the Juarez cartel. And this is, can you imagine Richard? He's like, I'm going to serve in the American army. Of course he was just 18 years old, and but he knew something was fishy. He knew, and he was reporting to us the mutiny. The mutiny, okay? He was reporting to us that it was so bad. There's no esprit de corps. So his whole chain of command, this whole chain of command, was unreliable to national security. Unreliable to national security. Don't forget about Nadal Baim, the Palestinian arms dealer, father-in-law of Lieutenant Colonel Bradford Bugado in the G3 of the 32nd ADCOM. Cartel. El Paso cartel. El Paso cartel in alliance with Juarez cartel. Family ties to Willie Moya, Arturo Alba, Manny Chavira, who is currently the chief of police for the ISD, El Juarez cartel, El Paso cartel in alliance. Nadal Bayim, and with ties to Gustavo Sanchez, family ties to Gustavo Sanchez, the Texas Ranger that was assigned to our case, is family with Nadal Bayim, the Palestinian arms dealer, father in law of Lieutenant Colonel Bradford Bugado, our son's command, saying that, well, uh, being an imposter FBI agent, right? He was impersonating an FBI agent because he has an alliance and access to our intelligence database. He has access because they've made an alliance, the El Paso cartel and the Juarez cartel. And part of that alliance is to have access to our databases, our intelligence databases. And that's why there's so many leaks. That's why they don't need FOIAs. They don't need to wait for a FOIA to be answered. They just get some screenshots, right? They just get the files leaked to them. They have access and they do us great harm, and they absolutely have breached our national security. And he's family with the Texas Ranger assigned to our case. Cartel, El Paso cartel, in alliance with the Juarez cartel. I, that's just, but he's a nobody. But he's a nobody. And now you know why Connell Wetton, the assistant special agent in charge, who has been there for years and years and years, over a decade, has leaked Richard's identity to the cartel because he's El Paso cartel. He himself is El Paso cartel in alliance with Juarez cartel. This is organized crime. And now you know why in the county courthouse in El Paso, you have Delia Briones and her family, Poison Ponds 1.0. Now we have Poison Ponds 2.0, but you have this tampering with all kinds of death certificates, all kinds of important documents, and this is really important in the whole funeral fraud that was flesh peddling corpses across the border, back and forth, or one way, or both ways, because she's El Paso cartel in alliance with Juarez cartel. And I talked to her on the phone. She seems so nice. They are wolves in sheep's clothing. They give you it's like Danae, Katzen, and Brees, El Paso cartel in alliance with Juarez cartel. Calling, oh, miss, I know all about your son, to mislead us, to lead us to KTSM, to do a show. Her family is in connection with KTSM. That's why she's a fugitive now. She's been on the 10 most wanted because she's a fraud, and she was in possession, her family in possession of Richard's cartel credit cards, financial information after his death, in connection with other members of this Juarez cartel and the El Paso cartel. And of course, working for Beto O'Rourke and La Diabla, Martha Alicia Mendez Aguilar, her family working for Beto O'Rourke. And here she is. What is she doing? She's training young girls to perform illegal C-sections on pregnant young women to access their babies and then perform organ harvesting. Because all of this is about access to children, to babies. And in order to do that, you have to have an organized criminal network. And the crimes are so egregious that your network needs to be judges, lawyers, law enforcement, intelligence agents, media, politicians, and the military. Because in order to do this, you need to have a lot of guns, because you have to coerce people. You have to create chaos and divide people. That's why they spend a lot of money on all of this racist stuff, white supremacy stuff, which is all baloney stuff compared to what the crimes they do is so bad. That's why you heard all this stuff about Haiti, all this stuff about the children of South America, Central America, and the United States, all over Europe. They want to divide people, divide the family, confuse people. They want to control children because they want access to children. And they don't want protection for children. They don't want daddies protecting their children. They don't want mommies protecting their children. They don't want that because they want access to the children. So they want to make it very, very hard for dads and moms to fight for their children. Financially difficult, socially difficult, and God forbid if you have done something in your past that you regret, they will dig that up and they will smear that all over you to silence you because they want access to your children. Well, Richard was my child, was our child. We're fighting for him. Yes, he was a young man, but we're fighting for him because he saw it and he reported it. And there was one very brave, moral judge on the border that also reported the irregularities, the tampering, the leaking, the foul play, naming the suspects, and what happened in that arms room on Fort Bliss. And that was Judge Roger Rodriguez. And and he also, and we know this from government officials, that he also reported on the tampering and the irregularities and the crimes surrounding the 2019 Walmart mass shooting. And now we have law enforcement yesterday on a Sunday reaching out to us, confirming that Richard's case and the Walmart case and all the tampering, the staging of the Walmart bloody violence, but it was staged. Just because I say it's staged doesn't mean that it wasn't deadly. They tampered. They tampered with bodies. Look at what happened in the one video. They were stepping over the German national, Alexander Gerhard Hofmann. They were taking pictures. They were walking up and down over the crime scene, even though a police had gone by. Time went on and on. It took them over 2 days to secure that crime scene. We know because of the blood and evidence that they staged Patrick Crucius coming into the Walmart after Alexander Gerhard Hofmann had already been long um, executed. And also, don't forget that video clearly shows that it was before the Unchandos. The Unchandos had already um, lost their lives, and you see the man coming with the baby, right? Which is a staging, a tampering, right there in front of our eyes. Where were the police to intersect that man, to question him about the baby? And I knew, you got to get the first aid to the baby. And I know that. But there were the days following all kinds of questioning about that. And where are the others in the picture? Did they come later? Were they killed somewhere else? Were they killed at the mall and their bodies brought in? Because I'm not disputing that they lost their lives. I'm disputing of the narrative that was given to us compared to what we see. And now we have law enforcement confirming, and not just one law enforcement. We have the investigators confirming that the crime scene was staged. Did they wipe, like you have, you could, in movies and stuff like that, there's someone dies and they're like, oh, I clean it up, wipe this off, do this, whatever. That's what I'm saying. They're messing with the crime scene. We saw it in front of our eyes there at UVU with Charlie Kirk's case, that they tampered with the crime scene. They paved over the crime scene 2 days later. They dug a foot and a half deep and put concrete. And now we have this story about the exploding, very pinpoint directed, because it's kind of like this new, it's not a new weapon, but it's kind of like what happened in Argentina, where you have this directed a weapon that can just cause people to have a bloody nose or something, get dizzy, and it's non-lethal, but it's a directed um, sonic boom kind of weapon and puts them out for a while, enough for you to go in, extract Madero, and come out. And I know that people lost their lives there, right? But this is a fort. And you can say what you want if you agree with that, if you don't agree with it. I'm saying that a sonic boom weapon was used, it was directed. That's what they used. And so now we're hearing things like this device on Charlie Kirk having a directed power source, like a beam of power that could have killed him. And a lot of people are saying that's what killed him, because the gunshot situation, gun owners, rifle owners are trying to repeat it and they can't repeat what they saw. And so they say it's something else. I don't know. I'm not an expert on anything. I'm not saying I agree with one point or the other. I'm saying that there's tampering going on. The truth is not out there. So people are doing their investigations. And with our son being so connected with the Walmart case, so connected to the Walmart case, intertwined with the Walmart case. And we were told by the CID to do the investigation into our son and bring them leads, or they couldn't help us. That was in a meeting, right? So, we're told this, we are doing this, and it led to the investigation of the Walmart shooting itself. And we broke it. We broke it because the DPS still pictures, the videos, we look at all of that. We look at that more than what other people are busy. They're working, they're doing this. We are defending our son. We're defending our son because they attacked our son when he was alive and they attacked him after he was alive. And we want accountability for these egregious crimes that intertwine with the Walmart case. And now we know we didn't look to say, oh, the Walmart case is staged, but it is. It was. And there's a shooter, at least one more shooter. At least one more shooter. We think there's multiple more shooters at large. At large. Yes, Patrick Crucius is serving 90 lifetime sentences, right? But there's still others involved in this who are at large. Who shot Maria Eugenia? Who shot Alexander Gerhard Hoffman? Who shot the Anchandos? Who shot Memo Garcia? So thank you so much. Thank you, Laura, for coming on. Just to know where all those phone calls that harassed y'all from the burner phones came from, even the White House, 100%. Uh, you know, I, there's been moments in these 5 years, over 5 years, that you just have to lay on the floor, right? You hear some news and you just have to lay on the floor and just shut your eyes and breathe in deep and be calm and take in what you just heard. That was one of them. That was one of those moments. The other moment is about Richard's car. Richard's car and A&R Chavira Auto Group selling Richard that car, and that registration being on January 25th, 2020. And you just No, the people involved, like, like those targeting Richard after his death, targeted him in 2019, planned it out, scoped him out, scoped out what he thinks he needs. You think you need a car? Okay, I think he needs a car. Let's tease him with a car. Let's give him a car for a good price. Let's get him a car so that we can set him up, that we can frame him, that we can control him. We can, well, their aim was to discredit him, and they did not succeed. They tried everything, didn't they? And the military was involved, his unit was involved, A&R Chavira was involved, which means Manny Chavira was involved, which means um, Woody Hunt was involved, and um, what's her name? Barunda. Sylvia Barunda Firth was involved early on. And who else? El Mayo, the El Paso, and Juarez, and with an alliance with the Sinaloa cartel. That moment, when that information came in, I just had to lay on the floor and close my eyes and take it in, what this means. And it's great understanding then, I mean, you just have to process it and say, this is one huge step closer to accountability. But you're shocked at who's involved. And the White House absolutely was involved. And this is in Biden's term. Okay? In Biden's administration, we were getting those calls. And Toronto City Hall, and Santa Clara, California, and NATO. One of the calls led to NATO. And so this is a mutiny, right? This is a mutiny. These are traitors to our country that are in these roles, in these institutions, these agencies. They have access, they have protection, and they are up to no good. And judges, there's a clause. I was listening to this man talk today, and he said that, the clause in the Constitution is you have to be on your best behavior, good behavior. So, wow, I know a lot of judges, most judges that are not in good behavior, they can all be fired. Simple as that. Do we have the guts to do it? Because our country depends on it. Our country depends on it. And, I know there's all this uproar with the ICE, rightfully so. And we have called out Connell Wenton. We have called out all of the agents and, Gustavo Sanchez, Manny Chavira, Jose Sanchez. I mean, we have called out, and more are coming. More are coming. Ted Cruz and more. Greg Abbott, Beto O'Rourke, Veronica Escobar. We've called out um, all of these very corrupt and criminal um, public servants, right? And so ICE, this whole operation, paid operation to fight ICE, to sabotage ICE, because ICE is just made out of men. I mean, and what I mean by men is humans, right? Men and women. That's ICE. And they're trained, yes, they're trained, but they're humans. And they're trying to do their job. Some of them are are bad actors, just like in the FBI and in the police. And um, yeah, what we're getting confirmation there is actual harassment and targeting of Peter Melendez in the DA's office. And government officials want you to know that the 34th Judicial District Attorney's Office is under investigation, including investigating tampered evidence, which is huge, huge, because the 2028 stamp is tampered evidence. I can tell you that. And that absolutely declares that James Montoya is illegal. Is illegal. Keep going, Candace Jensen. Keep going, Mama. I finally heard your words. Keep researching. It will work out. Thank you so much. I had to do a lot of research to understand your son's connection that you mentioned. Your son's story is incredible. You need to reach out to other podcasters. It's time we must remedy all this. We're working hard and have whistleblowers who have found all the connections from the municipalities to the highest levels. Absolutely. And we need prosecutors, right? We need a justice system. And the way the judges are today, they're blocking everything. They're blocking good prosecutors. You can't get someone, you got Congress that is, has a lot of these narco politicians or politicians that are um, compromised and league with these criminal activities because of funding and everything. So it is one big mess. It's one big mess. It's not, so you have to change the playing field, right? You can't give these judges that are absolutely working for foreign and domestic enemies the power that they have right now. You have to change the whole board, right? And I think that that's what we're seeing. I mean, I don't think that's what we're seeing. That is what we're seeing. That is what we're seeing. And um, that's why you have government officials, like, who are we, right? And then we're called and like, your son is a total hero. You know, y- what you have discovered, you just broke the Walmart case. You just broke the Walmart case. It's staged. You got the hard evidence, and we did. We got the hard evidence that proves that they tampered with the Walmart crime scene and that there are multiple shooters. And of course, with Mitch Snow mentioning us on Stu Peters, that's a big deal. That's a very big deal, because with Fort Huachuca being the sister base for Fort Bliss, you have that same alliance. See, the alliance, the cartel, the El Paso cartel alliance with the Mexican cartels, especially the Juarez cartel, okay? Because we have confirmation that it was a Juarez cartel that made the alliance to begin with the El Paso cartel. And then, of course, we know that El Paso cartel had alliance with Al Chapo's a faction of the Sinaloa cartel and El Mayo's faction of the Sinaloa cartel. So, and other cartels because the CGNG, right? The CGNG, La Diabla CGNG. So Paso cartel is like, it's a big deal. It's a big deal. And it reaches over to Fort Huachuca. It reaches over to Fort Huachuca. And I'm sure to other military bases. So many military bases that it was NATO that this phone led to, that it was Gimpo, which is our Air Force base there in South Korea, that these phone traces led to, that it was Seoul, South Korea FBI office that it led to. I mean, the FBI office we know is part of the El Paso cartel. So the El Paso cartel is not limited to El Paso, it has tentacles. And these are Americans, y'all. These are U.S. citizens that mean us harm. And what do they want? Why do they want this? What is their main goal? Why do they want all this power? They want access to children. To children. They cannot leave the children alone. That's why they fight with every breath for abortion. Because the evidence coming out is that they will tell these mothers, they'll do an abortion, but the baby will be still alive. But they'll tell the mothers it wasn't. I mean, this is the information that we're getting, that they want access to babies, that they want, it's just the wickedest, wickedest thing. And these C-sections, they were selling these babies. This is not me. This is all recorded in government documents that La Diabla was selling these babies into the United States. And that the mothers, not only did they have to suffer through these illegal C-sections, but that they lost their lives because their organs were harvested. And where was the dumping ground? Well, you got this then flesh peddling, funeral home, mortuary operations. Look, Richard's prime suspects are, of course, Dallas Hart, his mother, Leilani Hart, who needs to be arrested because her crimes are so big. There is no excuse for our law enforcement not to arrest Leilani Hart. Okay? There is no question at all. She needs to be arrested. And of course, her cousins Tavita Nusa and Solomona Nusa covered the CID office on Fort Bliss and mortuary operations. So, and of course, they had heart childcare. And of course, her confession was all about confessing to the facilitation of the worst type of crimes against children and having those videos and everything like that that are illegal and more and much more. And I've reported on that extensively. So they want access to children. And to compromise individuals, it's the drugs and, you know, these sex cult things and all of that. And they just weaken us and they do psyops on us and they do all kinds of stuff. And I can tell you for 5 years, people just sending us volumes and volumes of stuff because there's so many victims. And then you have to go through it and you have to discern what is true, what is misleading, and all of that. It's so what we're telling you right now is the result of a lot of hard work and what we documented and filed with government agencies and law enforcement, right? Law enforcement agencies, institutions, um, numerous politicians, which comes to the post that I just posted that when Judge Roger Rodriguez filed his whistleblower report to multiple, I mean, a whole pipeline of people, a whole group of people and agencies, organizations, because it was that serious, because he was the coordinator for anti-terrorism and homeland security programs on Fort Bliss, along with his judicial stance, and in that official capacity, filed those irregularities, the tampering, the leaking, the foul play, the naming the prime suspects. And besides all the rest of the deaths that that report fell on, it went onto the desk of Ted Cruz, Senator Ted Cruz, and it went on the desk of Sean Bernabe, Lieutenant General Sean Bernabe, the commander of Fort Bliss at the time. And we were speaking with him and meeting with him and regularly because he was working very, very hard obstructing the case and trying to get false narratives and trying to get Richard's case in cold case. We would have none of it, none of it. And we knew he was lying. He lied to us about Nadal Baim to our face. He lied to us constantly. He is such a criminal, I can't even tell you. And he had the whistleblower complaint, not any whistleblower complaint, a judicial officer that was the coordinator for anti-terrorism and homeland security programs on Fort Bliss. He had that report that confirmed that Richard's case was being tampered with and leaked and named prime suspects in the foul play against our son. And you know what? He never told us. We had to hear it from Judge Rodriguez, who called us in January of 2022 to let us know that he filed it. Now, tell me that Sean Bernabe he needs to be arrested, court-martialed, court-martialed, court-martialed. No excuses. And this is probably my biggest, biggest wonder. What in the world is President Trump doing that he has not, as commander in chief, stripped Sean Bernabe from our beautiful uniform, from those beautiful stars that are it's power that we've entrusted to a person over our voluntary sons and daughters. He cannot have that. Why does he still have that? Why did he get a third star? Who the hell is on that Senate Arms Committee that is pushing for somebody that is so mutinous, such a traitor, so evil, to have a third star, more power over our sons and daughters that breach our national security, that breach our intelligence database, give access, protect murderers that are on base, protect a Mormon faction, protect the El Paso cartel in alliance with the Juarez cartel and other cartels that have now been designated FTOs. Yes, let me read some of these comments. It's all about children. It's all about energy, the life force, blood. It's all about the children. And I'll tell you what I think is this problem, and I've mentioned it before. It's the polygamy. It's the polygamy. And I never really saw it like this before these 5 years. But always looking for another girlfriend, always looking for another boyfriend, because polygamy has changed now. It's not just the man having multiple wives. It's the woman having multiple husbands. It's like both ways. And they're always looking for another girlfriend, another boyfriend, another future wife or a husband. And can you imagine? And there's no real loyalty. There's loyalty to the polygamy, but not to the family structure and the children. Because I'm going to tell you, and you can read it. You can read it for yourself. You don't have to believe me. But the cases coming out of these polygamous relationships against the children and what it leads to. It's so bad, y'all. It's so bad. And it creates a culture that is very sick. Very, very sick. We have to make polygamy illegal and enforce it because it targets children. That's how it ends up. And it hurts so many people. It hurts everybody. It hurts everybody. There's nothing good that comes out of it. Nothing. Nothing. It is just a horror story. And Mexico has it legalized. And Utah has made it a non crime. And it is so criminal. It is the root of just the worst type of crimes. And yeah, and I hope I said that in the best possible way. It's just so bad. And that's how Richard described everything to us. It's just so bad, Mom. It's just so bad. So, because, words can't describe it. And the threats and the harassment you get, the crying out of these demons just cry out, and they have access. They have access to really do you some harm because they are in the military and they're in the judicial system and they're in the, and you think that they're so numerous, but they're not. And they're just in the right places. And that needs to all be scrutinized. And they're absolutely, look, the judges of the El Paso Criminal Law Magistrate Court are illegal. And they're doing so much harm. And they don't even have a constitutional right to be doing what they're doing because they're supposed to be elected because that court has full countywide jurisdiction. And according to the Texas Constitution, if a county court has full jurisdiction of that county, not partial, then those judges sitting on that court have to be elected. Not one of them in El Paso Criminal Law Magistrate Court is elected. Not one of them. They're all frauds. Frauds, y'all. Impersonators. Usurpers. Find a good word that, but they're not what they should be. And they're wielding power that's not theirs over people's divorces, custody battles, crimes, everything. Like over 90% of all the cases go through there. It's probably more than that. So they're polygamous forefathers. Yes. Yes. CPS traffics them to the cartels. Hmm. Yes. And the Customs Border, I think, deputy or whatever, the one of the guys in charge was relieved today. Um, there's a big shakeup because of what's happening in Minnesota with ICE. You know, you've got um, these individuals that are paid agitators that have connections that the media doesn't tell you, like the whole thing with Alex Pretty. His RN license is expired, right? No one is talking about that. I think I'm the only one that put that out there. Maybe someone else has put that out there, but he was, they're like, "Oh, he worked for ICU and the VA, and his license is expired. So that means he couldn't work or he was working illegally, and he was willing to go out into the cold. He was willing to take pictures. He was willing to scream in ICE's face, to obstruct them, to resist arrest, And is it a nice thing that he lost his life? No, but you're scuffling, you're resisting arrest. All he had to do was walk away. Like, I'm ICE. I'm here to arrest this illegal migrant, which is a good thing because that illegal migrant for 5.5 years, I've been telling people that what we've discovered is that they want access to children and they exploit the illegality of these migrants. They exploit them. They'll blackmail them. They'll enslave them. They will manipulate them. They exploit the illegality of these migrants, and they're in danger. They're in danger. So, and we saw that with the Mario Ortiz Serraldi case, where he was supposed to be their lawyer and he's exploiting them, having his way with them, and then returning them back to their captors. You know, and then Montoya, who's illegal, right? The DA, the prosecutor, he's like, well, it was soliciting a prostitute. There's no prostitute in this. How can you be soliciting a prostitute if there's no prostitute? These are migrants that are being exploited because they're illegal. They have immigration problems. And so they're being exploited. Because if you have immigration problems and you're being the big R, right? Someone's having their way with you without consent, forcing themselves upon you, manipulating you, who are you going to go to? Who are you going to go to for help to report it? And then what happens if you get into a crisis pregnancy? Oh, we know just the right lady. They call her La Diabla, but you can call her Martha Aguilar. And, she can give you a really cheap C-section. You check in, but you never check out. I mean, this is. The media is not reporting this, and ICE these people need to deport themselves, right, for their own safety, for their own future. Or ICE needs to do that because we're going to have more situations like Plenitude Crematorium, like La Diabla. I mean, she's just one that we caught. And her family was working for Beto O'Rourke, and Plenitude Crematorium owners lived right next to Beto O'Rourke. And Beto O'Rourke was being pushed by Oprah, and Oprah was pushing John of God. Now, John of God was like the mentor through his disciples to Patrick Crusius's father, John Brian Crusius. Creepy and no coincidence and totally criminal. Yes, absolutely. So, um, God is right, and I'm gonna read this to you. I normally don't do this, but I'm going to because this was such a very dark subject, and I try to read the Magnificat every night. Of course, we have 2 a.m. in the morning, and I'm just gonna read this to end. The wisdom of this world is foolishness with God. 1 Corinthians 3:19. Let God be found true, but every man a liar, that God may be justified in his ways. I'm not going to say all the verses, but for saith the Lord, as the heavens are higher than the earth, So are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts higher than your thoughts. That's in Isaiah. And the Bible is a book worth all other books which were ever printed. That's Patrick Henry. And I just want to say the El Paso cartel is not only in our military and in our institutions and politics, they're also in our churches, in our houses of worship. They, once you know who they are, it's like you know their language. It's 5 years. It's like their language. I know their language. It's like learning their language, the key words they use, their tactics they use, the playbook they use, the phrases they use. It's over and over. You can spot them, and they're in our houses of worship. And that's why this whole TPUSA is so heartbreaking to so many, because they're even in our, 501c3, where you think, um, oh no, this is a good organization. And now they're finding out, especially through the financial documents, that it was infiltrated. You become a success. You become a success either with, God's just prepared me for all of this. There was a movie called Jumong. It's a Korean movie. It's in the Korean language. It's called Jumong. Okay. And it is about the rise of Korea. Okay. And the highest point in Korean's history. And it's very long. It's like 80 episodes. It's magnificent. It's just magnificent. You have to read it if you don't know Korean. You have to read the subtitles, but it, that sounds horrible, but the movie, the series is so good that you don't even care. You don't even notice it that you're reading the subtitles. And one of the points is that they target the best of the best, and it could be the best sword maker, the best. Um, they want the salt mines. They want the blacksmiths. That's the word I wanted. They want the best blacksmith, right? They want the recipes, the best recipes, meaning for how to do anything, right? And whoever can perform those recipes the best scout, the best this. It didn't have to be like the wealthiest people. And you have the likes of Charlie Kirk, whose IQ is off the chart. His IQ is off the chart. Um, Photographic memory. And they seek these people out. And, so I just want to keep that in mind, instead of a rash pointing fingers and this and that. We know that TPUSA, they're up to no good. And they used to be trustworthy. And so who's who in there? Who's who? There's wheat and there's tares. Wheat and tares. And, God warns us about that, being too rash, right? Too rash, right? And it's kind of like the migrants. There's wheats and tares. There's some that are really criminal. There's some that just were trying to get over here because they'd rather live here than wherever they were. But you don't know. You don't know who's who. And so it's going to take a lot of discernment from us, a lot of patience, and a lot, I just pray for that. Pray for that. Um I think it's going to be a bumpy road before this all gets sorted out. And um and I can tell you with our son's case that we've gotten so far is it's just a miracle. It's just a miracle that we have discovered everything that we have, and I'm just so grateful for it. It gives us such a great peace, not the peace. We want our son's remains, right? We want our son's remains, and we want those that are responsible for taking his life so brutally. We want them held accountable, and yeah, so that's what the word is now. The word that's coming for the public is that the government officials are on it, are on it. And, can we believe them? Can we um we're seeing it. We're seeing, and I'm not at liberty to tell you everything, but we're seeing it. And if they betray us, right, I will be the first one to tell you. But there's a lot of reason to pray right now and to share. Absolutely share. You have so much power. You don't even know we are a government of the people, by the people, for the people. And your sharing, your advocacy is vital, absolutely vital in all of this. And that's why your vote is so, so important, and that they will manipulate. And I mean, they carried out the Walmart mass shooting to create this attack, I mean, they're willing to do the worst type of things to control the politics and everything, to control those positions so that they can act what they do with impunity, which is targeting children at the end of the day. So, yeah, your vote counts so much. Whatever you do not give up your right to vote. Do not give it up. Don't let anyone tell you, "Oh, it doesn't matter, blah blah blah." That is your power. And it is a huge, huge sword to wield. Uh so yeah, absolutely. And yeah, let's pray about that, and let's try to do the right thing every day. So thank you so much. God bless you for your support. And I will be back tomorrow, God willing. Bye bye.